I inherently believe Indian people really want other people to succeed. I think the cultural reference of India was very important to me. I'll give you an example.
Suhasini Sampath.
Suhasini Sampath, who's the CEO at Yoga Bharat.
The first thing that strikes you is the word yoga. So, ye kaise hua? How did this start?
I was at Wharton completing my MBA, and I was to live with my sister in New York. And at that point of time, both of us used to take a yoga class in New York. And every time we used to finish the yoga class, we used to go and eat a bar. And my sister came up with the name and said, you know, in India, when we used to work really late, there was never anything healthy to eat. If I had a bar, I would call it Yoga Bar. And I'm just like, wait a minute, that's actually a really cool name. I trademarked it at the point where I didn't even know if I would set up a business or not.
And how do you get that self-belief? Because there are moments of doubts where you're all alone, and maybe some of the moves that you made, multiple moves that you've made,
Don't
work. So how do you stick to that?
I actually think there's no better time to do business than now. The central government schemes are so good that I, in the future, would do businesses based on the schemes in existence because the process is streamlined. It's a very structured process. The government actually reimbursed 35% of the cost of the facility.
35% gets
35% of the cost. So you can build a world-class facility. In my circles, a lot of people have decided not to do foreign travel because, our Honorable Prime Minister said, travel within India. And we honestly live in the most beautifully diverse country in the world.
As a woman entrepreneur, you started your journey in 2012. Now, today, when you look at the space that is available for the women entrepreneurs, have you seen any paradigm changes there? Today on the GDP podcast, we have an exceptional woman. What makes her special is that she's making us Indians eat healthy. And what's even more remarkable is that the products that she's creating, they're not just healthy, they're cool, and they relate with the young Indians. And most importantly, they are made in India. Presenting the founder of Yoga Bar, the remarkable Suhasini Sampath on the GDP podcast. Suhasini, welcome to the GDP podcast.
It was such a kind and lovely introduction, Sharad. I'm truly grateful. I feel like I was really happy when you gave me an introduction like that.
Every bit of that is true, and our audience will realize as we progress in this podcast. What is striking about your product? The first thing that strikes you is the word yoga. So, ye kaise hua? How did this start? Tell us a bit about that.
So the story actually goes back almost more than a decade. I was exchanging, I was at Wharton completing my MBA, and I was to live with my sister in New York. And at that point of time, both of us used to take a yoga class in New York. And every time we used to finish the yoga class, we used to go and eat a bar. And that time there was this brand called Kind Bar in the US, and it used to be clean ingredients, stuff you could see and pronounce. And my sister came up with the name and said, in India, when we used to work really late, there was never anything healthy to eat. If I had a bar, I would call it Yoga Bar. And I'm just like, wait a minute, that's actually a really cool name.
In 2012.
In 2012, yes, early 2012.
That's very interesting.
And then I'm just like, listen, whatever we do, I trademarked it at the point where I didn't even know if I would set up a business or not.
Wow, that's
so
some
I just
conviction.
trademarked Yoga Bar, and I, came back to India. My sister was there for some more time. And then there's a journey of how Yoga Bar started.
So you come back with the belief that you want to do something in India.
Yeah.
That was the time when, the India story was not as strong as it is today.
Yeah.
So what made you come back to India?
See, I inherently believe Indian people really want other people to succeed. I think the cultural reference of India was very important to me. I'll give you an example, and two stark examples, right? I lost my father when I was doing my MBA, and I went to the gym. The person, and I had a gym membership in London, and I told that lady, "See, this has happened. I want to cancel my membership because I have to go back. I have to sort stuff out for my mother." And she was just not willing to cancel the membership. Wasn't very empathetic or anything. And when I reached the airport, on the other hand, for taking a ticket back to India, the Air India, person who was giving me the ticket went all out, used her discount coupon, got me the cheapest ticket possible. She gave me a really nice seat on the airline, and she said, "I cannot imagine how difficult this is for you." And that's the Indianness of the way we behave with each other, right? Like,
So beautiful.
and I was just like, this is my people. I can't feel that sense of belonging anywhere else the way I feel in India. It's just, whether you're in an apartment, and I'll tell you, like, I moved apartments recently, and the apartment hosted me a farewell. And I was just like, where in the world are
This
people
happened.
going to make you feel like that's such a big part of your life? And that's, to me, that's what life is about.
Yeah.
And it's a very and for me, the India story is really important. So that was a large reason why I came back. Like, a lot of these instances that kept happening, and I felt like it's just different in India. Like, people are just people relate to you in a way that feels very personal.
And sometimes when you go out of India and you experience a different culture, that's when it dawns upon you
Yeah, yeah.
that what we have here is something really special.
Yeah, I mean, I guess every culture has its nuances,
Yes.
but because we've grown up here, we appreciate um,
The warmth.
all the warmth, and I feel the warmth makes all the difference. That feeling of belonging, I think, is quite important in life.
Beautiful. Okay, so you come back with the idea of yoga bar
Yeah,
and the trademark registered
yeah.
with you. Then what happened?
Then I met a couple. So the only job that I've ever done is with KPMG. So I'm an accountant before I did my MBA. So I decided that I wanted to do a business. So I started an accounting outsourcing company. So I got all my ex-boss, my colleagues from KPMG to leave. That company's done quite well. It's now 400, 500 people. We do accounting outsourcing for a lot of companies in US, UK, etc. And during that process, I did feel inherently I'm somebody who loves brands. It's like much more creative. Like, it's just a business I would enjoy much more. And we used to do the accounting outsourcing for several startups. So that's how I got, a lot of knowledge on the startup ecosystem. How do you raise venture capital? And then there was, a VC investor who runs Fireside named Kanwal, who kind of said that, "Suhasini, you seem like a very professional person. If you decide," and I shared this idea of yoga bar because I used to eat it in the board meeting. And Kanwal used to be like, "What is this you're eating?" And I'm like, "It's a yoga bar." Even that time I used to call it like a noun form. I used to just be like, "It's a yoga bar." He's like, "What's a yoga bar?" And then I had to tell him that whole gist of that story of the kind
That's
bars,
smart
etc.
branding.
That's smart branding. And because my mom used to make it for me, she used to make these oat-based, millet-based bars for me. And then he said, "I'll give you some money. If you make a business out of it, great. Otherwise, I would have felt like I supported an idea that could have become something big." And that's how Yoga Bar started.
Okay, so the seed capital is in.
Yeah.
The idea is great,
Yeah.
but then you need to now manufacture this.
Yes. Yes.
So how did that happen?
There, I think actually the role of the government played a very, very large role. So we went to a nationalized bank. At that time, it was Vijaya Bank. And he saw, both my sister and me went at that time. And because he saw our credentials, so my sister was from BITS and IIM Cal. I was a CA ranker. I'd done my MBA in a great school, and he said, like, such educated women are starting a business, the government will support it. So the government had a scheme called the CGTMSE scheme.
Okay.
At that point, the central government guarantees 1 CR of any loan that you take. So the bank gives you a loan. The central government guarantees that loan to the bank. So which makes it very easy for the bank to disperse a loan. In less than 10 days, he and record speed, sanctioned the loan, So the loan came in 10 days, and that's how we kind of started. So we had this loan support, and then we went to all the chicky making plants in Coimbatore.
Oh, okay.
So then we customized the chicky making plant for bar manufacturing, because the dough is a little bit different, And then we had the recipe formulation, worked with bakers in Bangalore, streamlined the product, got the facility set up through a manufacturer in Coimbatore, had this loan from the bank. The bank was extremely supportive. Then that's how we initially started. Then we started supplying to the airlines. We had contracts with Indigo. We had contracts with, Air India and all of that. We supplied to their crew.
Oh.
And then the repeat orders kept coming, and that's how slowly grew.
Awesome. So tell me, a lot of young Indians who would be watching this podcast, one thing that always comes to their mind is that where will I get the seed capital? What is the kind of support I'll get for the government? So in your journey, right from the loan that you mentioned, any other milestones where you got support from the government policies, or you were able to leverage it to your advantage?
I actually think there's no better time to do business than now. And the central government schemes are so good that in the future, would do businesses based on the schemes in existence, because the process is streamlined. It's a very structured process. So we've done multiple things actually with the government. So we have this 1 lakh square feet facility in Tumkur. There is a scheme called MoFPI, Ministry of Food Processing Industries, gives you a fund to actually, a capital subsidy. So 33% of the cost of your facility or 5 CR gets reimbursed to you. So you can build a world-class facility, and the government actually reimburses 35% of the cost of the facility.
35% gets
35% of the cost. So if you do a facility for 1 crore, they'll reimburse 35 lakhs. So there's a scheme for a capital subsidy. We became one of the largest brands selling in Nepal, Maldives, now selling in Sri Lanka, etc. Government has an export subsidy scheme. So any marketing expenditure that you incur in foreign markets, the government reimburses 50% of the marketing expenditure. And the best scheme of all was the PLI scheme on millets.
Okay.
As Yoga Bar, we were one of the largest users of millets in our products. So if your products contains 15% or more millets, the government actually, for SMEs, the amount of pool left for you to claim is about 40 crores, which is insane amount of subsidy. So we've actually, all the schemes that I've talked about, Yoga Bar has done all of those schemes. We've availed every single subsidy that the government has. And all of my businesses in the future, I will work very closely with the government.
And when you reach out to the government and you want some understanding of the schemes, you want to meet people in the bureaucracy, what is the kind of people, what is the attitude that you've seen? Are they open to entrepreneurs like you? Do they help figure out solutions for you?
See, I'll be very honest. Our experience has been stellar. Even when COVID hit, I wanted to keep the plant open because essential items in food, but I wasn't very sure of the guidelines. I could reach the head of state, and she was responsive. She just texted me. She said, "Suhasini, hear you. We'll solve it for you." I got my passes in less than a week.
Wow.
The guidelines are so streamlined now, because obviously the government has their agency, like IFCI manages some of their grant schemes, PwC manages, and I come from KPMG, so I'm also from a finance background. The process is so streamlined. You just have to follow the process. Like, the guidelines are clearly marked. You follow everything to the T. You create a docket. The government has resolution schemes. You can write emails. They're very responsive. I would go on record to say central government schemes, to avail of the schemes has been 100 times easier than actually raising capital.
Wow.
So it has been, and it's non-dilutive capital. On top of everything else, you're pretty much, it's non-dilutive. So It was seamless. I mean, I think actually the word that I want to use is absolutely seamless.
Amazing. You mentioned about millets, right? And we've seen an explosion of millets in our country. And the Honorable Prime Minister has had a big role to play.
Yes.
So tell us, how important is it that when the head of the state, he speaks about health, and he actually, in a way, becomes the brand ambassador for the category? And especially when you launch your millet bar, I think it was
The
first in that category.
Yeah.
So what role does the Prime Minister's support for such categories play?
Yeah. No, I've been hoping and praying for a decade that I finally one day will have the Honorable Prime Minister say, "Har ghar mein yoga bar." But of course, that is a dream that will be fulfilled at some point. But it is great, and I'll tell you why. For companies like us, we want to spend all of our capital on giving the best product to the consumer. We at Yoga Bar are not big believers in spending on marketing. So I've never used any brand ambassador. I feel a brand ambassador's money should go back as better price to the consumer. So obviously, when you're a category creator, I'm already creating a new category because bars as a category didn't exist in India, right?
But and then when you create a subcategory.
You create a subcategory, and then you create millets and all of that. So we were the first ones to use millets in our bars, and it still remains the highest selling product in our portfolio in terms of number of units. We launched Millet Muesli, and it's a extremely high selling. It's the second largest selling muesli in the country. And it's only been possible because the Honorable Prime Minister has been promoting millets, and with good reason, because millets are extremely nutritious. Like, they control sugar, they're inherently gluten-free, they're rich in magnesium, rich in calcium, and of course it grows in our country, grows as our crop, right? And always, as close as you are with your consumption patterns to the farm, it's a far better, way of living, way of consuming healthy. So it has been instrumental, and added by the fact that we have the name yoga. The Prime Minister has also been extremely voracious about promoting yoga. So
Absolutely.
I feel like we were in the right place, right time, right brand, right products, right category of products. So all of that fell in place really well.
Absolutely. And I think what has been, a standout when it comes to the Prime Minister is he has spoken about these things at the right forum. United Nations declaring the International Yoga Day in 2015. Then another thing which was remarkable is what now people are calling it the Millet Diplomacy.
Yeah.
So during the G20 summit, a lot of the international dignitaries, they were offered millet-based, cuisines, which was highly appreciated by them. So these kind of innovative ways of, showcasing our superfoods on forums that matter and mainstreaming them into, the public's consciousness. I think that is something that we as layperson, when we look at what's happening, we feel that yes, nowadays millets are like, your dinner table and water cooler conversations.
Yeah. I also think that every country should promote what is inherently, their strength, because at the end of the day, the India story is going to be, the products that we feel that we can manufacture in the best possible way, right? So we have one set of superfoods, which is millets, etc. But we also have a certain expertise in products like turmeric and ashwagandha and, shatwari and all of that. And, and also stuff that needs to still be explored, that is in our forests in Northeast India, or, stuff that we can explore that has medicinal value, which are very unique to us, and unique to our ecosystem of ancient medicine and
Absolutely.
the
and
ancient food
geography
that we've been using. Like, for example, millet-based products in the US are actually called made with ancient grains.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They brand it as made with ancient grains. And the first time I saw it over there, and I'm just like, Yeah, but we've been eating ragi all our lives, and why are they charging us like this exorbitant sum of money? We should make a bar with millets and export it to the whole world. I mean,
Yes.
and of course, I mean, I think the India story is powerful, and the more we focus on the things that is inherently us, we will absolutely win.
That's really really interesting because I think now slowly as a nation we are recognizing our strengths and and we are now taking it to the world. But I think one thing which is very important and it is something uh, we can learn from your journey is that while you have something which is quintessentially Indian, it's very important that you package it correctly. You make it relatable.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about that experience of yours.
So I think that's where, like, I think exposure in general helps. I think when we were growing up, I think my parents focused a lot on exposing us to various art forms. So like we would know a lot about Western music, but we would also learn Indian classical dance. And the more and we would read a lot of magazines. So we would read, why we would read Tamil newspaper. We would have the New Yorker sometimes coming at home or whatever, right? So I do believe that when you expose your child to a lot of
Diverse experiences.
diverse experiences, and most of those experiences are, like to do with intellectual pursuits, like you read a lot of books, you read a lot of different kinds of books, etc. You develop a sense of taste and you develop what would work universally. Um, it's the reason why I knew yoga will work. Like even if we sell it in South America, we sell it in Germany, we can be the number one brand. We are seeing that happen as and when we are launching in Maldives, Mauritius. We are a very close second to the largest MNC in that
Oh,
country,
that's very
which is,
interesting.
and it is something that's grown from India, right? So we always wanted the packaging. We always had this vision that it should look like something that on any shelf anywhere in the world we stand at par. So how do we create, like at the point where yoga bar started, pink packaging was not something that people were used to seeing on the shelf. But then you take that call, you say that हटके होने से भी फायदा है, like people take notice. If you're building out a category, people want to see that packaging. So I think it's a combination of having a certain exposure but also understanding that you're building for the world from the get-go.
Absolutely. And when you speak, you can sense the kind of confidence that you have in India, in the culture that we belong to. And this is a pattern that you now observe across the board. As Indians, we are way more confident than before. Uh, when you now interact with people outside India, do you see that they've started looking us differently in the last 10 odd years? Has there been a shift in the way they look at India, the Indian market?
Um, I mean, I think the India story is here and everyone's talking about it, and for all the right reasons, right? I feel the expectation from anyone outside of India is to be dealt with at parity with a sense of fairness. We don't need generosity anymore.
Yes.
We need you to think of us as equal to you. And I think that's what's happening. Like people don't take you, people take you seriously. People understand that you bring value to the board. Across tech companies, even in the US, most of the positions are held by Indians, whether it's the CFO, the CEO roles of almost all the large tech companies in the world. And yeah, we will start seeing brands being built out of India and our Indian products being everywhere in the world. So I think our time has come in many, many ways.
Yes, that's true. Uh, Tell me a bit about the way the world looks at our leadership, like the Honorable Prime Minister. When you have conversations with them, dinner table conversations, water cooler conversations, how do they look at India's leadership? How do they look at Prime Minister Modi?
I think very powerful, right? Like I feel like we are finally at a place that we are taking a stand on things, and that's a useful place for a country to be. Because if you sit on the fence, it's difficult from a perspective of you don't even know what the country is thinking. But when the entire dialogue is around progress, we are number 4, we need to get to number 1,
Yeah.
and I'm sure our prime minister is that ambitious. Like, why not number 1, right? Like, you will go from 4, you will go to 3, you'll go to 2, but the site is number 1.
Yes.
It's believable today. It might not have been believable some years back, but it is believable today. And you know that the system means business. The system is talking about progress. The
And they
system is
are
talking about moving,
responsive, and
and very responsive, right?
and they're
So
partnering with you.
they're partnering with you. So I think it's all the right things, like I feel like suddenly people have to take notice. Like, India is now powerful, and you have to take notice that we have a seat at the table and we have a voice, and that voice is very loud.
Wow, awesome. As a woman entrepreneur, you started your journey in 2012. Now, today, when you look at the space that is available for the women entrepreneurs, uh, have you seen any paradigm changes there?
I think the societal construct has changed, and that's what takes women forward the most. I think husbands recognize that their wives could make businesses that can pretty much provide for the family, and that piece of chocolate or the chutneys that we erstwhile used to sell and in the confines of our apartment can now be a really large business. I think we understand that our daughters are very capable. We understand that we need to educate our girls as much as we need to educate the men. And all lives are equal. And that societal construct is what is leading to a paradigm shift in your own ambition.
Yes.
Like, for instance, I mean, I come from a family where my dad had all 3 daughters, right? So, and his only ask of us was be independent, depend on yourself, and be the kind of individual that, takes society forward. How much you take society forward is up to you, but do things that are constructive and, move the country forward. And stories like mine make other women believe that they can also do it, because I come from a family where both parents worked really tremendously hard. We're equal parents, and we didn't have a lot of money. And if it's possible for somebody like me, it's possible for everybody else too. And of course, my access to education, my access to exposure is something that every parent has to provide their child. And I think education is paramount, and that's how we will see a very large cultural and societal shift. But we're all moving in the right direction, and things that were not. There's never been a better time.
Yeah.
Today feels like a better time. It just feels like the best time.
Yeah, and I think your enthusiasm is very infectious. Uh, I was just, when I was doing a research, some interesting facts popped up. The government has this scheme called PM Mudra Yojana. So around 27 lakh crores have been dispersed since 2015. And 70% of all of these disbursements, the beneficiaries have been women.
Excellent.
So it's actually making it one of the largest formal credit programs for women-led micro and small enterprises in the world.
Amazing.
So that is something.
Actually, the point system that the government has allocates extra points. If you're
tell me a bit about that.
So for every scheme, right?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, if there are 10 contenders,
Yeah.
you need to grade.
Yeah.
You need to grade everybody's report based on idea, based on background. And based on the technical feasibility
Absolutely.
of the idea.
Yeah.
So while you have 90 marks that are, of course, you need to score it as well as everybody else, the 10 marks extra is given to you purely because you are a woman.
Wow.
So, and that makes sense. And sometimes that makes all the difference between
It's
getting and not getting
that
it,
extra,
Yeah, that extra
point that you need.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think the role of the state is always to also promote the things that brings everybody to a level playing field.
Right.
So in that sense, it makes a lot of sense to get more women working, more women starting businesses. And this is one way to encourage people to do it.
When you look at the Indian women, and when you interact with young Indian, ambitious Indian girls, what is your advice to them? What are their strengths And what are the weaknesses that they should overcome?
I think the strengths definitely are that the exposure's a lot. Now with the internet has made the world one place, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely feel like you are at par with everybody else because you get exposed to everything. Um, and now because you have societal acceptance and people are treating you equally, and you even might have a slight advantage, in most places, it's a great time to actually live your life very meaningfully. So I think is the primary thing, right? So you can be anything you choose to be, so choose wisely.
Yeah.
That would really be my summary. Like, now that you have the power, make sure that you live a life that feels like you've moved forward and you've moved everybody else forward.
Awesome. So that purposefulness, once
Purposeful,
that
yeah.
comes into your, it's a superpower.
Yes.
Okay, Suhasini, now it's time for our rapid fire round, and it's called Quick Bites.
Oh my God.
Okay, the first question. What is more important in building a brand? Taste, packaging, or Instagram aesthetics?
I don't have an Instagram account, so I'm going to say combination of taste and packaging, but taste probably number one for
Taste,
food.
number one.
For food, yeah.
One ingredient in packaged health food people should always check for.
Sugar.
Sugar. One health trend Gen Zs are overhyping right now.
Protein.
Have you ever launched a flavor or a product which you personally hated but the customers loved it? Or maybe hated is a very strong word.
I
Yeah.
have the reverse.
Okay.
Something I loved and customers hated. We
Okay.
launched a turmeric muesli that I was the only consumer of.
Okay.
And then we had to close down that product, but it was an exceptionally good product.
Okay.
Super healthy.
If you had to label one of your products Founder's Guilt-Free Indulgence, what would it be?
That would be the original millet chocolate chunk nut bar.
One healthy ingredient that people should consume more of.
Millets. They should substitute rice with millets, is my sense.
Taste first or nutrition first?
Nutrition first.
Sugar-free or stress-free?
Probably stress-free.
Profitability or valuation?
Stage of the company, so probably valuation.
Big retail chain or loyal D2C tribe?
Big retail chain.
Why do you say that?
Because a big retailer also has a very loyal set of consumers. And I feel it's the only place where you know that without influencing somebody, does your product work or not. With D2C, you're constantly doing push marketing.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, what does the consumer feel without you telling them anything? That's the true test of the power of a brand. So the Ashirvads of the world were all built in a big retailer, and therefore to scale from 100 to now 4,000, 5,000 crores is you got the product right. You got the consumers coming back for repeat, the consumers coming back because there's quality and all of that. You're not telling them anything. So I like brands that are not reliant on constant push marketing.
So what you're saying is that sometimes when you are pushing the product, you are in a way influencer, and you yourself also get influenced.
Yes.
You get biased about the product.
Yes.
Because you're storytelling all the time.
All the time, yes.
Interesting. Disrupt the category or dominate the niche?
Disrupt the category.
All right. And why do you say that?
Because you can build a far larger business. Larger business means larger impact.
If you were mentoring a 20-year-old today, what would you tell them to obsess over for the next 3 years?
The customer. Your business exists because of the customer, so you obsess about what the customer wants. Every business that's ever been successful has always obsessed about the customer.
Okay, we have some young audience questions. These are students from across the country, and we call this segment Campus Crossfire. How do we get to know if a healthy snack is genuinely healthy and not well branded?
So ingredients on a packet are always listed on declining order of percentage of ingredients. So if your first three ingredients are actually good products like millets or dry fruits or oats or things like that, you know the product is healthy because that is 70% composition of the product.
Oh, that's an interesting factoid. If we want to enter the FMCG market straight out of college, what's the smartest entry point?
Uh, it has to come from a business that you're passionate about. I feel like the objective of doing business cannot fundamentally lie in I want to make a business and I want to make money. It has to come from a fact that I had a need, I fulfilled that need, and do other people have that need, and can I solve the need for a large number of people? When I started Yoga Bar, I started because I used to make those bars for myself. I saw like a problem statement in a product that I needed for myself. And then I said, okay, if I have this, will others consume it? So I started checking in yoga studios and people were repeat buying. And then I went bigger and then I went bigger. I feel like there's nothing in life that's a one, I'll give you an answer and I'll solve it. It's a process of discovery.
Awesome. What's more important for young founders? Idea, network, knowledge, or audacity?
Hard work, a lot of conviction in your self-belief and a lot of hard work. Everything else, I think, falls in place, but you have to believe in yourself and you have to be willing to give it that grind.
And how do you get that self-belief? Because there are moments of doubts, where you're all alone, and maybe some of the moves that you made, multiple moves that you've made,
Don't work.
So how do you stick to that?
I think self-belief is telling yourself that it's okay to fail. When you believe that it's okay to fail and that you'll figure it out and your mind is a little bit more rational, expecting everything to work is like self-belief is a product of managing your expectations with who you think you are. And managing expectations is a process. Like I feel like you have to think deeply about things that, like how you go about problem solving. Everybody has a way of problem solving. So I feel if you're able to stay calm about something, you eventually will find a solution. And self-belief means if you're walking a path, be willing to walk that path for 10 years. You might not see something year one, year two. Sometimes life is just about taking one step forward, and those 300 steps a year becomes 3,000 steps in 10 years, and 3,000 steps is enough for you to create something meaningful.
What's that one business skill you wish you had learned in college instead of after starting up?
I think being likable. I felt like maybe in life sometimes it's okay for people to not like you. I think you should always be the kind of person that people like. I think one should always work on trying to be relatable, to understand that everyone's unique and accept and like people. I feel now I've got to a place in life where I feel that way about almost everyone I meet. I always focus on what are the things that I like about somebody. That makes better business. It makes better treatment of employees. It makes better understanding of customer complaints. It translates to so many different ways of doing things, because then it's more inward looking and saying how can I improve rather than the other person's at fault because I find it difficult. You know what I mean? So I feel like that one trait has taken a very long time to develop, but it's a very useful one.
So if I get you right, what you're saying is that when you're looking at a customer or when you're looking at an employee, you're looking at a lens, is that what is that thing which makes him unique?
Yeah.
And where do I fit that uniqueness into my ecosystem?
Yeah, because they will always be, and you also understand their perspective. Like in a difficult situation, which you have to encounter, sometimes like when you have long interaction with your employees, etc., there'll always be certain places where you disagree, but seeing their perspective builds a more harmonious work culture.
And does that also help you handle adversities better when it
100%. 100%.
Can you explain that?
I feel like, there was a point in the business where I feel we had run out of funding because we were obviously a funded company, and it was transaction to complete was taking time. But all our employees stuck by us. They never even questioned. They said, if it's her, she will find a way. And that was their self-belief in me.
Wow.
And it was my belief and my process of being likable a bit and developing that sense of trust that made them stay through thickness, and through good times and bad times, we will stick together as a team. So, and those situations will happen for everybody. Like, that's just the way of life, you know.
That's very interesting, and I think that trait in leadership is so magnetic that once you have that faith and trust in your leader and that likability, then you are ready to walk that extra mile and take that leap of faith.
Absolutely.
I see something similar when, right now, we know the geopolitical situation, and of course, like every country, India is trying to figure out the right way to pivot through this tough time. But when the Honorable Prime Minister comes and he speaks about this, and he speaks about what we need to do as a nation, and when I, talk around to people, the sense I get is that everyone feels committed to the cause and says, ki, we need to stand by the nation, we need to be with the Prime Minister, and we'll figure out a way.
Actually, to give you an example, right? In my circles, a lot of people have decided not to do foreign travel. Because, our Honorable Prime Minister said, travel within India. And we honestly live in the most beautifully diverse country in
That's
the
true.
world. Like, you could spend months in India and there would still be something new to discover. we culturally, we're one of the oldest civilizations. There is history in every single, state, and there is natural beauty. Every time I've ever visited abroad, I would go back to thinking, oh my God, there is so much beauty in our country. Why cannot we make tourism a really serious business? Simply because there's just so much to see.
Wow, awesome. So, Asani, a lot of young Indians who would be watching this podcast, getting inspired by you, you are a role model for them. What is going to be your advice and your message to them?
Um, my message is there's no better time than today. I've been saying that multiple times in the podcast.
Yes.
Entrepreneurs create a lot of value for the economy because you create jobs, you create new value added products. I would love to see India on the map for creating truly innovative tech. We do have the best colleges in India, right? The best, tech institutes are here. So my message would be that this is our decade. Let's build the best companies in the world because we have all the talent right here in the country. There is a lot of support that the government gives you, and there is just no better time to dream really big. There's just no better time.
Suhasini, you spoke so authentically, you spoke from your heart, and you spoke so logically, and you spoke with such conviction. It was one of the best podcasts that I've ever done.
Thank you.
Thank you for the motivation. Thank you for inspiring us.
No.
And thank you for doing what you're doing for the country.
No. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's indeed a very, very large privilege to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.